The cafe was alive with the usual morning chaos, steam swirling from coffee machines, the low buzz of conversations, the rhythmic tapping of keyboards, and the occasional clatter of a dropped spoon. But in one corner, near the window, sat a woman who seemed almost invisible, even amid the crowd. Her hands were wrapped around a warm mug of tea, knuckles white, as she stared out at the street without really seeing it. She wore a small, delicate crown-shaped pin on her coat, the kind of accessory that could easily be dismissed as quirky. But today, it looked more like a shield, a fragile emblem of someone trying to hold herself together in a world that seemed determined to break her. She took a shaky sip of tea, hoping no one would notice the faint tremble in her hands. At a nearby table, a little girl with bouncy pigtails and a backpack shaped like a tiny lion noticed her. The girl had just finished her hot chocolate, her chocolate-smeared lips forming a curious frown. She squinted, tilted her head, and seemed to be trying to figure something out, as though she were reading a puzzle only she could see. Then, without hesitation, she slipped from her chair and walked toward the woman. Her small sneakers made almost no sound on the hardwood floor, but her presence was impossible to ignore. "You look sad, princess. Do you need a hug?" the girl asked, her voice a mix of innocence and unwavering certainty. The woman's head snapped up, her eyes wide in surprise. A dozen polite responses formed and died in her mind. She wasn't used to being noticed, least of all by strangers, and certainly not by children. I'm fine," she stammered, but the words sounded hollow even to her own ears. The little girl didn't waver. She climbed onto the edge of the chair across from the woman and leaned forward, offering her tiny, open arms. "Hugs fix lots of things," she said simply. The woman blinked, unsure whether to laugh or cry. Instead, she found herself doing something she hadn't done in years. She nodded. And the little girl, satisfied, hopped into her lap, pressing herself against the woman's chest with a sincerity that was both shocking and comforting. At first, the woman held her stiffly, afraid of making any sudden movement that might shatter this unexpected connection. But slowly, tentatively, she wrapped her arms around the child. And in that small gesture, something inside her began to shift. A heaviness she hadn't realized she was carrying started to ease. Why are you calling me that?" the woman whispered, her voice breaking in ways she hadn't expected. "Because everyone deserves to feel like a princess sometimes," the girl said, her tiny chin lifted proudly. "Even if it's just for a little while." The woman felt a lump rise in her throat. It was such a simple sentence, and yet it pierced through years of loneliness and self-doubt. How could someone so small, so young, understand a pain she had carried for decades? For a moment, the cafe seemed to fade away. The hum of conversations, the hiss of the espresso machine, even the bright sunlight streaming through the windows, all of it blurred into the background. In that quiet, stolen corner of the world, all that mattered was the warmth of a small body in her arms and the purity of that unexpected kindness. A few tables away, other customers stole glances, some smiling, some indifferent, but none truly grasping the magic of that moment. It was invisible to most, but to the woman and now to the little girl, it was transformative. Finally, the girl's mother appeared, calling softly, "Sweetie, come on. We need to go." The child pouted, lingering just a second longer, before turning and scampering back to her mom. The woman watched her leave, and for the first time that morning, she smiled, tentative, fragile, but undeniably real. She realized that even a brief encounter, even a fleeting moment of connection, could crack open a door that had been closed for far too long. As she sipped the last of her tea, she caught her reflection in the cafe window. She looked different somehow, lighter, almost as if the simple act of being seen had altered her entirely. And deep down, she knew this wasn't just a passing moment. Something had shifted, something that could change everything if she let it. Little did she know, the girl and her innocent question would lead her into a story of friendship, healing, and unexpected joy, one that neither of them could have imagined when their paths collided in a tiny cafe on a seemingly ordinary morning. The cafe had quieted down by mid-morning. The sun had climbed higher, spilling golden light across the tables and casting long shadows on the wooden floor. The woman sat alone again, a little heavier in thought, her hands absent-mindedly tracing the rim of her empty cup. The memory of the little girl's hug lingered like a spark of warmth she couldn't quite shake. She didn't know why the encounter affected her so deeply. It wasn't just the hug, it was the purity of the child's attention, the way someone had seen her without judgment, without expecting anything in return. For years, she had hidden behind polite smiles, pretending everything was fine, even when it wasn't. And now, for the first time in what felt like forever, someone had broken through that invisible armor. As she sipped a fresh cup of tea, she glanced up, scanning the café almost subconsciously. And then she saw her. The little girl, clutching a small notebook to her chest, was peeking around the corner like a curious sprite. Her eyes found the woman's immediately, and a shy but determined smile spread across her face. "Hi, princess," the girl called softly, making her way back to the same corner table. The woman froze for a second, unsure if she should smile or stay reserved. But before she could decide, the girl was there, plopping down into the chair opposite her as if she had a right to the space. I didn't think you'd come back," the woman said, her voice soft, almost surprised at the tremor in it. The girl shrugged, tapping her notebook. "I wanted to show you something. I like drawing princesses, and I thought maybe you'd like to see one." The woman raised an eyebrow, intrigued despite herself. The girl flipped open the notebook with the care of someone presenting treasure. On the page was a delicate, colorful sketch of a princess with a crown that gleamed like sunlight, a flowing gown that seemed to float, and a smile that was almost magical. But what caught the woman's breath was the small figure beside the princess, a little girl holding her hand. That's us?" the woman whispered, leaning closer. The girl nodded seriously. "I drew the princess how I think she should feel, happy and brave. And I drew me helping her because sometimes everyone needs a little help." The woman felt something stir deep in her chest. She had been carrying a sadness she couldn't even name, a quiet grief that clung to her like shadows at dusk. And yet, here was this small human, so innocent and so brave in her own way, showing her that it was okay to be helped, to feel seen, to feel human. For the first time in years, she laughed, a soft, almost trembling sound that made the little girl grin widely. This is beautiful. "Thank you," she said, her eyes misting. The girl beamed, clearly proud of her work. Then, without hesitation, she reached across the table and squeezed the woman's hand. "You're my princess," she said simply. "And princesses don't have to be alone." Something about the phrase struck the woman like a gentle lightning bolt. She realized she had been alone for so long that she had forgotten what it felt like to be noticed, to be cared for, to have someone say, "You matter." The cafe buzzed around them, people coming and going, but the woman felt cocooned in a small, magical bubble. Her heart, which had been weighed down with quiet loneliness, began to feel lighter. "You know," the woman said after a moment, a small smile tugging at her lips, I think I needed this more than I realized." The girl's eyes sparkled. "I know. That's why I came back. Sometimes people just need a little reminder that they're special. Even princesses." The woman chuckled softly, and for a fleeting moment, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. It was a fragile thing, yes, but undeniably alive. She wanted to hold on to it, to see where it might lead. As they sat together, talking and drawing, the woman felt a quiet determination grow inside her. Maybe this little girl had come into her life for a reason. Maybe she was a reminder that kindness could still break through the thickest walls, and that even the smallest gestures could ignite change. When the girl finally left that morning, promising to return with more drawings, the woman sat back in her chair, gazing at the empty notebook page still lying open. She traced her finger along the outline of the princess she had never known she wanted to be. And in that moment, she felt it, a spark, a gentle, insistent spark that whispered that perhaps life, despite its hardships, could still be magical. And just like that, the woman knew, Something had shifted inside her, and the next chapter of her life was quietly beginning. The next morning, the woman arrived at the cafe earlier than usual, her heart fluttering with a mix of anticipation and nervous excitement. She didn't quite know what she expected. Another drawing, another hug, maybe a conversation. But the memory of the little girl's smile and her gentle words lingered in her mind like sunlight after a storm, and she couldn't stay away. The cafe was quiet, a few early risers sipping coffee and scrolling through their phones. The woman chose the same corner table she had claimed the day before, her hands wrapped around her cup, feeling a strange sense of comfort in the familiar spot. But as she looked out the window, she noticed movement across the street, a tiny figure running toward the cafe, her backpack bouncing with each hurried step. It was the little girl, but something was different. There was urgency in her stride, and a small frown furrowed her brow. "Princess," the girl exclaimed as she reached the table, panting slightly. "You have to help me." The woman's chest tightened. "Help you? With what?" she asked, concern replacing the lightness she had felt the day before. The girl dropped her notebook onto the table, flipping it open to reveal hurried sketches. But these weren't the cheerful princesses she had drawn earlier. They were scenes of someone looking lost, someone crying, someone trapped. The drawings were frantic, uneven, and filled with emotion. "My cat. Mr. Whiskers, he ran away," the girl cried, her small voice breaking. "I can't find him anywhere, and I don't know what to do." The woman blinked, a mix of surprise and amusement breaking through her worry. Of course, it was a small problem in the grand scheme of life, but to a child, it felt monumental. And in that moment, the woman realized something important. This little girl trusted her. She had come back not just for kindness or comfort, but because she believed the woman could help. "Okay," the woman said gently, reaching across the table to take the girl's hand. "We're going to find Mr. Whiskers. But first, we need a plan." The girl's eyes widened, hope lighting her face. Together, they pored over the drawings, which now served as a map of the neighborhood the girl had searched. Each scribbled line represented a street, each small mark a place the girl had checked. The woman listened carefully, asking questions, suggesting new places to look, and offering calm reassurances that made the girl feel seen and heard. By the time they left the cafe, the little duo had transformed into a small search party. The woman crouched to the girl's height, whispering strategies and encouraging words. "We'll check the park first, then the alley behind the bakery. And if we don't find him there, we'll try the corner store. Mr. Whiskers has to be somewhere," she said, her tone calm but determined. The girl nodded solemnly, gripping the woman's hand tightly as they set off down the street. There was a strange comfort in the way they worked together, a connection that bridged age and experience. The woman felt a spark of purpose she hadn't felt in years. Here was someone who needed her, and she could be there, fully present, without walls or hesitation. As they reached the park, the girl's eyes scanned every bush, every shadow, calling out Mr. Whiskers' name. The woman crouched beside her, offering encouragement and helping to move branches aside. Minutes felt like hours, and the little girl's hope wavered, but the woman stayed patient, reminding her that persistence often leads to miracles. And then, a soft meow. The woman looked toward the sound and saw a small, striped cat darting from behind a bench. The girl squealed, running forward, arms outstretched. Mr. Whiskers leapt into her embrace, purring furiously. The woman couldn't help but smile at the sight, a tiny victory, but one that felt monumental to them both. The girl hugged the cat tightly, then turned and threw her arms around the woman in a spontaneous, grateful embrace. "Thank you. You helped me find him. You're really, really my princess too," she exclaimed. The woman's heart swelled. She knelt down, returning the hug, feeling a sense of joy that was rare and deep. "I'm happy we found him," she said softly. "But you know what? You helped me too. You reminded me that it's okay to care, it's okay to feel, and it's okay to trust someone." The little girl beamed, her eyes sparkling with pride and relief. And as they walked back toward the cafe, side by side, the woman realized that this small adventure had changed something in her. Life, with all its unexpected challenges, could still hold moments of pure magic, moments that could heal wounds, inspire courage, and remind her that even the smallest connections could have the biggest impact. By the time they reached the cafe, the woman felt a quiet confidence she hadn't felt in years. The world outside might still be harsh and unpredictable, but here, in these tiny interactions, she had found hope. And as the little girl scampered off to show her mother Mr. Whiskers safe and sound, the woman knew deep down that this was only the beginning of a story far bigger than a lost cat. By late afternoon, the cafe had emptied out, leaving only a few lingering customers nursing their final cups of coffee. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, painting golden patterns on the wooden floor. The woman sat in her corner again, her mind still replaying the morning's events, the little girl's determination, the frantic search for Mr. Whiskers, and that triumphant hug when the cat was found. For the first time in a long while, she felt lighter. Yet there was a lingering ache, an unspoken question that had been haunting her for years. What about me? Who is here when I need someone? She was so lost in thought that she barely noticed when the little girl appeared again, this time dragging a small, bright pink gift bag behind her. "Princess," the girl squealed, eyes sparkling. "I have something for you." The woman blinked in surprise. "For me?" she asked softly, a smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. The girl nodded vigorously. "It's to say, thank you. You helped me find Mr. Whiskers and you helped me be brave, too. So you deserve a gift." Curiosity and warmth mixed in the woman's chest as the girl handed her the bag. She carefully opened it, revealing a small, handmade bracelet, a string of colorful beads, some shaped like stars, others like tiny hearts. In the center was a single bead painted gold. "This is beautiful," the woman whispered, touched beyond words. She held it up, turning it in her fingers, feeling the weight of the little girl's thoughtfulness. The girl leaned forward, eyes wide with seriousness. "That gold bead is for you. It means you're special. And you're my princess too. Always." The woman felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. She had long ago stopped expecting kindness to be so freely given, and yet here it was, in a tiny bead strung with care and intention. She slipped it onto her wrist, the gold bead catching the sunlight. "Thank you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "This means more than you'll ever know." The little girl smiled, satisfied, then leaned back and tapped her notebook. "I drew something for you too." The woman opened the notebook. Inside was a picture of her, the same woman who had felt invisible for so long, standing tall in a flowing gown, smiling confidently. Beside her was the little girl, holding her hand, both of them bathed in sunlight. Above them, in bright letters, were the words, "Princesses are never alone." The woman felt her chest tighten as the reality of the words sank in. It wasn't just a drawing, it was a message, a promise, a lifeline. In that moment, she realized that this small girl had given her something far more precious than a bracelet or a sketch. Hope. I don't know what to say," she murmured, tears slipping freely now. "You don't have to say anything," the girl replied matter-of-factly. "You just have to wear it and remember." The woman glanced around the cafe, suddenly aware of the emptiness and the quiet hum of life around her. For years, she had been moving through the world like a ghost, unnoticed, unremarkable, untouched by kindness. And now, here was someone who had seen her, truly seen her, and loved her enough to remind her she mattered. She felt a wave of gratitude so strong it almost knocked her back in her chair. She wanted to cry, to laugh, to do both at once. And she realized maybe it was time. Time to stop hiding. Time to let herself be seen. "Do you know," she said softly, holding the little girl's hands in hers, "that you've changed me? You've reminded me what it feels like to be cared for, to feel hope again. You're braver than you know." The girl grinned, beaming with pride. "I know. And you're brave too, princess. You just didn't know it yet." The woman laughed, a sound she hadn't heard herself make in years. It was a laugh full of release, full of life. And in that laughter, she felt a shift, a deep, unspoken understanding that her life was no longer the same. As the girl finally left to return home, the woman stayed behind, gazing at the notebook and bracelet. She could still feel the warmth of the little girl's hug, the strength of her small but unwavering presence. And for the first time, she allowed herself to hope, not just for fleeting happiness, but for a life filled with connection, joy, and love. It was a quiet revolution inside her, a reminder that sometimes change doesn't come in grand gestures, but in small, deliberate acts of kindness. One hug, one drawing, one bead, one promise. And as she sat in the sun-dappled café, the woman realized something remarkable. She was no longer invisible. She was seen, she was valued, and she had begun to believe, truly believe, that even princesses could find their happily ever after. The following morning, the café felt almost magical. Sunlight streamed in through the tall windows, catching dust motes that danced like tiny fairies. The aroma of fresh coffee mingled with the scent of baked pastries, but to the woman, it all felt different today, warmer, brighter, alive in a way it hadn't before. She walked in, bracelet gleaming softly on her wrist, and took her usual corner seat. Her eyes scanned the room, but it wasn't the café itself that she was waiting for, it was the little girl. And as if on cue, the familiar pigtails appeared, bouncing with enthusiasm as the child darted toward her. "Princess," the girl called, voice full of excitement. "Guess what? I drew another picture for you." The woman smiled, her heart lifting. "I can't wait to see it," she said softly, patting the seat across from her. The girl plopped down, flipping open her notebook with the pride of a tiny artist unveiling a masterpiece. And there it was, a scene of the woman standing in a sunlit meadow, surrounded by flowers and birds, the little girl holding her hand. Above them, in bright letters it read, "Every day can be magical." The woman felt a lump rise in her throat. "It's beautiful," she whispered, voice thick with emotion. "Thank you." The girl's eyes sparkled. "I wanted you to remember, even on sad days, you can be happy. You can be brave. You can be a princess." The woman's eyes filled with tears. She realized, fully and deeply, that she had been holding herself back for years, letting loneliness dictate her life, keeping her heart locked away. And now, thanks to a tiny, fearless girl, she could see a different path, one filled with hope, kindness, and connection. "You know," she said, taking the girl's small hand in hers, "you've taught me something very important. That life isn't about being perfect or doing everything alone. It's about letting people in, and sometimes it's the smallest people who teach us the biggest lessons." The little girl beamed, pleased with herself. "I know, right? Even princesses need help sometimes." The woman laughed softly, a pure, freeing sound that seemed to echo through the empty café. She looked around, suddenly aware of how much she had changed since the first morning she sat alone in that corner. She felt lighter, stronger, and more alive than she had in years. As they talked and shared laughter, a familiar warmth settled over her, a feeling she thought she had lost forever. And it wasn't just happiness, it was purpose, connection, and a sense of belonging. She had discovered that joy didn't come from grand gestures or distant dreams, but from small, real moments of care and love. The little girl glanced at the woman, then leaned in, whispering, "Princess, do you think maybe we can come back here together tomorrow too?" The woman smiled, brushing a stray lock of hair behind her ear. "Yes," she said softly. "I'd like that very much." In that instant, she understood something profound. Life's magic isn't found in crowns or castles, but in hearts. Hearts that see you, hearts that care, hearts that remind you that even when the world feels heavy, you are never truly alone. The café door opened, letting in a fresh breeze and the sounds of the city. People came and went, each wrapped up in their own lives, but the woman didn't notice. She was fully present, anchored in the simple joy of this moment, a warm hand in hers, laughter spilling across the table, and a tiny girl who had changed everything. She looked down at the bracelet on her wrist, the golden bead catching the sunlight. It wasn't just a piece of jewelry. It was a symbol of connection, courage, and hope. And as she held the little girl's hand, she knew she would carry that reminder with her always, that even the smallest acts of kindness could spark the biggest changes. "Thank you," the woman whispered, her voice full of gratitude. "For showing me, for reminding me that happiness is possible." The little girl grinned. That's what friends and princesses are for. And in that cozy cafe, in that quiet corner where magic had quietly grown, the woman laughed again, tears streaming down her face, not from sadness, but from the pure, overwhelming joy of finally being seen, finally being loved, and finally believing that life could be as beautiful as she had always imagined. Outside, the city continued its endless rhythm, unaware of the small miracle unfolding inside. But inside, in that corner of the world, two hearts had found something extraordinary, a bond that could heal, a friendship that could inspire, and a reminder that sometimes all it takes to change a life is one hug, one drawing, and one fearless little girl who refused to let the world stay sad. And so, the woman, the little girl, and even Mr. Whiskers, safe, purring, and content, sat together, basking in sunlight and joy, knowing that life's true magic often comes in the smallest, most unexpected moments.